All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. It is the Free for All Friday, and I'm looking forward to a fun weekend. Actually, going up to New York, seeing family, going to see some art at two of the world-renowned museums in Manhattan. First, we'll probably be hitting the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art. There is a Picasso exhibit, and Picasso is always interesting. I do liken him. I consider him a sort of the Bob Dylan of the 20th century art world, perhaps the biggest kahuna of them all, but kind of a little bit different, a little weird. Can't always say I find his work super accessible, but it's always interesting. And there's some personality similarities as well, probably between Picasso and Dylan. So looking forward to seeing the Picassos at the Museum of Modern Art, and then we'll be going to see always crowd favorites, Impressionists, Manet and Degas at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So it should be a pretty busy day, going from Midtown all the way up to the Upper East Side there to see the Impressionists. But really looking forward to it. It should be fun. I'll tell you a little bit about that, maybe, if it's in my mind, on Monday. No Arlen this Monday, but the following Monday we'll have one Arlen program before the new year. And then I'll be off for the week of Christmas to New Year, and then Monday as well. That, I believe, is the first, Monday the 1st. So Arlen will be rejoining us again after this period of this break. One Arlen next week from this Monday, and then again a couple of weeks off. Should have Dr. Dana back. Looking forward to talking to her again as well. If you didn't catch Dana Beyer, MD, as my special guest yesterday, and it was a pretty rollicking, lively conversation, especially the first half when we talked about Israel and Palestine. She and I have very different views about what needs to be done, what should be done to protect the lives of civilians in that region. I won't get into more specifics about our disagreement, but I do urge you, if you haven't yet caught the dialogue with Dr. Dana and I, or me, right? Because it's a me with me. So please check that out if you get a chance. I hope you'll do that. And I don't know if you caught a little, just checking out. I gotta see, this is so frustrating. I can't get the audio just a tiny little bit. So I can confirm I'm on the air, but you don't get that annoying duplicate audio. Anyway, the point is we're on the air. And then Dr. Dana and I actually agreed much more so in the second half of the program. We talked about issues involving the trans community in the United States and around the world. So I do urge you, if you got a chance, to check out yesterday's call with Dr. Dana at Halitics. And did I do my intro? Welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. That's me. Click bottom right, like and subscribe by clicking that square, the blue and white square on your screen if you haven't yet done so. So I do want to give out this holiday message. I think you can sort of see it's a little bit busy, this slide. I'm trying to figure out how I can just have that menorah with the different animals. If you can see it, there's a menorah kind of in the background. The shamash, that is the lead candle, is the giraffe because it's the tallest animal. And then I'm going right to left across your YouTube screen with the two candles there with the sheep and then the toucan. Then there's plenty of other animals as well. So to celebrate today, the first day of Hanukkah, the second night this evening, I certainly do shout out a salam to all my Palestinian sisters and brothers. And if any of you are listening, please call in. I'd love to hear your feelings, your reaction to what's happening in Gaza. And then certainly, while I'm harshly critical of what Israel is doing, of course I wish shalom, peace, to my Israeli friends and relatives, of whom I have a number. So what else can I say? I want those two fists to be bumping at the bottom center of your screen under that shamash. We do wish, I think all of us or many, maybe not all, maybe not the profiteers, the weapons manufacturers, those demagogues who find that their power increases when the killing does, but the great majority of us do want peace, and even if we side with one or the other in this terrible, murderous conflict. So, salam to Palestine, shalom to Israel, and to all of you. Let's get to some of the topics. Well, it is a free-for-all. I promoted this as a free-for-all, kind of. Maybe I didn't, because yesterday was the free-for-all. I was really taken by and let me just put here is the promo slide. We'll start with that. And by the way, if you want to give me a call, 240-242-5646. I really want to talk to you. I got this thing set up right. I was talking to, one of my friends, listeners to this program. He was very complimentary. I really appreciated the kind words. I think the program works best when it's a dialogue, when it's not just me talking, it's you and me, you and I talking. And just like it was yesterday with Dr. Dana, the only thing I would have wished even more, although maybe it's kind of a mixed blessing not getting calls yesterday, because just allowing the two of us to go back and forth was great. But I always want to hear from you. That's really a major reason I do the program. I want your voices heard. And I also want a division of opinion. This is not a program where it's all about received wisdom from me and my allies. So it was really exciting to have Dr. Dana on yesterday, because she presented, a unvarnished pro-Israel view, which is not what I present to you. So I thought it was really cool, frankly, to have, two different perspective shared. Now, when it came to the trans issues, we pretty much see eye to eye, which I guess that makes me feel vindicated, because I've been taken to task by members of the trans community in the past. But at the same time, I want to hear maybe from more youthful, more assertively pro-trans. I mean, I think Dr. Dana is super pro-trans, so it's not like she's not pro-trans, but I mean people who are taking a position that trans women are women, right? That trans men are men. That if you want to compete against women and you're a trans woman and you want to compete against girls or women in sports, even if you went through adolescence as a male the way Leah Thomas did, I want to hear from folks who say, no, he should still be allowed to compete. Well, actually, I'm sorry, she should still be allowed to compete against women and girls. And I want to hear that perspective as well, because that is not mine and that is not Dr. Dana's. This headline really, well, I kind of conflated a bunch of stuff. And, sometimes I get a little cute with the GIMP or, the Photoshopping. Photoshop is a verb now, but it obviously reflects the influence of Adobe. I believe it's Adobe, right? Adobe Photoshop, the paid prescription-based graphic design program. And anybody who knows me or listens to me knows how super cheap I am. I will, I'll spend a nickel if I can't spend, a penny, but I'd rather spend nothing at all if I can possibly get away with it. And I do use GIMP, which is a open source, totally free as in beer, as well as free as in free speech program. You can examine the code if you want. And from what I understand from people who really are graphic designers, unlike me, because I'm not, certainly, the rankest amateur there is when it comes to graphic design. But what I do understand from people who actually know what they're talking about, Photoshop is better than GIMP. It's easier to use. it's more powerful. I don't want to be more powerful. I mean, my gosh, this thing can do everything but cook toast. But it's pretty difficult in some ways for me to figure it out. And, the more I do it, I hope I'm getting better at creating these kinds of, I don't know, get memes or promos or what have you. I think I'm getting a little more facile with it, but it's, you get cute, right? You get too cute. You put a whole lot of stuff in there. Maybe I'm a little too cute. So what really caught my attention as I was going through this debate, this recent discussion about, is Trump going to be a dictator? What are we going to do about him? How do we stop it? I saw this op-ed in the Washington Post: a Trump dictatorship is increasingly inevitable. We should stop pretending it's not. And that jive, this was actually dated November 30th, a week ago, more than a week ago. So it predates Trump's recent comment about being a dictator just on day one. And then, of course, you can see there mighty Joe Biden, Mighty Mouse with the Joe Biden head, saving the day as Joe Biden saying he is running for president because Trump is running. So he has to take Trump on. I thought all of that was really interesting, and I kind of wanted to address it in detail. The first thing that jumped out at me from this particular headline, and let me see if I can really make it a little bigger for you. I'm going to try to really increase the size, was who wrote that op-ed for the Washington Post. I hope you can see it. I actually did, what's the word? I circled it, right? I ovaled it. I didn't really circle it. I used that oval tool. And so this is by Robert Kagan. And so this fascinated me because Robert Kagan is an editor there at the Washington Post. He's also a neocon of the First Water. And, if anyone should be familiar with dictatorships, with fascism, I would say Robert Kagan's one of them. So it's almost like, who writes this stuff? Who from the Washington Post thought it was a good idea to have the architect of the Iraq debacle, the absolute disaster that was and continues to be the U.S. war on Iraq? Who thought it was a good idea to have him sound the alarm regarding a Trump dictatorship? Is there anyone less credible when crying wolf about a dictatorship than someone who is a wannabe, if not dictator himself, certainly supporting the most fascistic of policies, the most destructive, the most pro-war corporatist policy? And I believe Robert Kagan is the husband, unless it's his brother Frederick. I think it's Robert, is the husband, of course, of Victoria Nuland, who has promoted fascism, tyranny in Ukraine. So, I mean, the irony, the palpable hypocrisy of Robert Kagan fretting and worrying on the pages of the Washington Post of a Trump dictatorship. I mean, it's incredibly rich. And I've got to again ask, whose idea was it to sound the alarm of dictatorship using perhaps the worst bell ring, the worst bell ringer, if that's the term, right? The worst watch person shaking their rattle than Robert Kagan. Nobody could be worse. Nobody could be less credible. And in case you're wondering about that, here's what Chris Hedges has to say, somebody who is truly credible. So I bring this up because I don't want you to be reading the Washington Post or the New York Times and saying to yourself, oh my gosh, Trump is a terrible, terrible threat to our freedoms, and therefore we must embrace Joe Biden. We must follow Robert Kagan, because those are two really bad choices. If Robert Kagan is telling me not to vote for Trump, to be fair, that's a good argument in my view to vote for Trump. Now, there are lots of reasons not to vote for Trump. I'm not going to vote for Trump. But it sure as heck ain't because Robert Kagan doesn't like him. Here's what Chris Hedges calls Kagan: a pimp of war. Neocon, he's a neocon who fueled 20 years of carnage in the Middle East. And a little over a year ago, Hedges right is back for more. The warmongering buffoons who drove the U.S. to disaster in Iraq and Afghanistan are now eager for war with Russia. And how can you argue with that? He nails it. He's exactly right. That's fascism, endless war, distraction from the true domestic problems that we face. Enormous profits. Lockheed Martin has pocketed billions from the war on Ukraine. So when Robert Kagan tells you be afraid, be very, very afraid, I would say be afraid of anything that Robert Kagan suggests we should do, including, of course, voting to stop Trump, however possible. That Trump is the biggest threat we face. If that's what Robert Kagan is telling you, I'd be very, very skeptical. That said, yeah, Trump is a problem, and we'll get into that in a little bit more. But we got to first focus on how fundamentally dishonest Kagan is, and the Washington Post is, really how hypocritical they are, citing him, relying on him to scaremonger you into certainly voting for neo-lib, neo-con Dems like Joe Biden. So here's what Chris Hedges, who, let's be, look at his track record, right on Iraq, totally against the war in Iraq, right on the cost of the neoliberal hegemony, the ascendancy, what it's done to working people, right on how awful the Clinton war on black people, specifically with respect to the crime bill, right, the omnibus crime bill, which Joe Biden was a big supporter of. So you're talking with Chris Hedges, who is very, very harshly critical of Kagan. You're talking about someone with, who's got unimpeachable credibility and integrity. So here he goes. I spent 20 years as a foreign correspondent reporting on suffering, misery, and murderous rampages that these shills engineered and funded. He talks about Elliot Abrams. I think we all know what a bad guy he is. By the way, resurrected from the dead, right? Weekend at Bernie's, they dusted him off and brought him back. The Biden admin did. Robert Kagan, director. So people like Abrams, Kagan, and Kissinger, who kind of had a late in life come to Jesus moment, come to road to Damascus moment, where he rejected the neocons, and then kind of when he said, no, it's a mistake. We shouldn't be in Ukraine. That's what Kissinger said at maybe 99, and then when he reached that 100-year mark, he decided, no, I better go back to my old ways, and said, no, we got to stop Putin and kill more people. I guess he had heard enough from, I think, his old pals. Is Madeleine Albright's still alive? She'd be part of that coterie as well. So Hedges' experience with Robert Kagan, this guy was a propagandist for the brutal military regimes in El Salvador and Guatemala, where they have dictators. They have military juntas, tyrants in charge, fascism. That's the guy that you are listening to if you believe what the Washington Post tells you about Trump being a potential dictator. The problem we face is, of course, Trump is a potential dictator, right? I mean, he's a really bad guy too. So where do you go with this? We've got a frying pan and a frying pan, or we got two big conflagrations we got to choose between, and they're both, the answer is no. Who's worse? Joe Biden and the Washington Post, or Trump and Fox News? Who's worse? And the answer, yes. Yes. Robert Kagan was a propagandist for the rapists and homicidal thugs in the Contras during the 1980s. And his job was basically just to discredit reporting. That's called fascism, right? That's what you saw with Goebbels. You attack, you absolutely vilify media that exposes your wrongdoing. That's who Robert Kagan is. That's the guy who is telling you how bad Trump is. That it's inevitable. We've got to stop pretending. So I don't know where you go with it. We got nothing. That's the bottom line. Join me on the free for all. 240. Let me see. Do I have my number? 242-5646. And I told, just one more time, a Trump dictatorship is increasingly inevitable. We should stop pretending, from Robert Kagan. So I guess his answer is, vote for Biden anyway? I don't know. I mean, because this is a guy who's pro-dictators. He's pro-tyranny. He's pro-fascism. So what a nerve for him to be out there in the Washington Post rubbing his hands together. Is it in glee, maybe, that we're going to get true fascism, he hopes, with Trump? I don't know. I don't know. More on Kagan and just what a truly, truly, truly bad person this is. Somebody that, again, if he tells you to put on a raincoat, I go out in my bathing suit, basically. He is just utterly uncredible, utterly dishonest, a fundamental liar. By the way, speaking of that, did you hear? I don't think I have the video. I don't have the video here. I guess I could hunt around for it. I'm not going to. Did you hear Hillary going on and on about how we have to bring to heel the Hamas rapists and how women were so victimized and we're not believing all women and all that? Well, the problem is we don't really have any witnesses who at least are credible to what Israel claims happened with respect to the sex violations of corpses and rapes on October 7. We have a few people who say they saw it. I thought Max Blumenthal did a great job, and Aaron Mate did a really good job going over the claims by some of these alleged eyewitnesses to the rapes and pointing out why they're not really credible. There's no forensic evidence, meaning, as far as we know, there's been nothing adduced like semen stains, blood that shows there were sexual depravities committed. That Israel hasn't presented. Of course, Hillary's response is we have to just believe them. So, you want to believe her, you want to believe Robert Kagan, go ahead. Of course, Robert Kagan is the guy who said the road to real security and peace is the road that runs through Baghdad. And that war led to probably 1 million deaths in Iraq, a very small country, 1 million displaced people, turned the Levant, the center of the Levant, into basically a power vacuum, which Iran rushed to fill. So yeah, that was real good call there, Robert Kagan. How did come these people even have jobs? Why is Robert Kagan even allowed to present his opinion? He's an editor. It says editor at large. Does that not discredit completely the Washington Post? I mean, largely, this is the thing. They do some good reporting. The facts that they present as facts are usually facts. They're usually true. But this kind of crap, putting a Robert Kagan there to, fret about potential dictators when he himself has been empowering dictators and creating dictatorships throughout his long and particularly hideous and ugly career. It's extraordinary. It truly is. One of the upshot, or the result of this fear of Trump, right, apparently, is that that President Biden believes he needs to run. He needs to take Trump on because it's the potential, the possibility that Trump could get reelected is so great that only Joe Biden could can stop it. So, you know, there he is, Mighty Mouse, here to save the day. Let's get this clip up, and I actually have a clip of Biden as well, but I want to start with this because the story first came to light when an attendee at a Biden fundraiser said that Biden discussed why he was running for re-election and said, were it not for Trump, then he might not himself run. So let's get this video up. This is from Bloomberg News. As usual, all these corporate mainstream media groups, when they do live coverage, when they have their reporters out on the scene, they do great work. I mean, they spend a lot of money. They have excellent equipment. The people that they employ speak very well. They are clear. They don't say the ums like I do. They don't stutter. Their hairs are all in place. So let's go to the pros. From Dover, here's Bloomberg News.
These comments President Biden made at a campaign in Boston, quote, if Trump wasn't running, I'm not sure I'd be running, but we cannot let him win for the sake of our country. Is that a message at 81 years old when poll after poll says the American people think you are too old to be running for this country, saying, well, if he wasn't in it, maybe I wouldn't be?
I got to give him points for honesty. It was a really interesting thing. And if I were one of the donors in the room, I'm not sure what I would do with that information. It's an odd position to, one, believe that he is the only Democrat who could beat Donald Trump. Others might have difficulty. But the polls after poll after poll are showing that voters are worried about his age, that voters are worried about his ability to beat Trump this time. And so I think that that's not the kind of messaging that if I were his PR people, I would be thrilled with.
All right. So like I said, they did a real nice job there. And we're going to hear from Biden in a moment. But I wanted to address that. The issue was, is Joe Biden, does he really think he's the one person who can defeat Trump? And I don't know what Joe Biden thinks, and I don't know how afraid of Donald Trump Joe Biden really is. I will say that the polling is, as I look at those polls, I see basically a dead heat. Yes, Trump has a slight advantage. I don't think that's anything you could bank on in the least if you were a Trump supporter. And while the polls do suggest Trump has a lead just outside the margin of error, remember that the off-year elections, the special elections, have really favored the Democrats. So if you put that into the mix, I'm thinking it's a dead heat, or again, Biden's got a slight lead. Not what the polls say, but what I say, what I glean from all of this. Is Biden the strongest person to take on Trump? Maybe, I don't know. But it's not a question of whether there's somebody out there in the Democratic firmament who would be a better candidate, who would do better, would have a better chance of winning. That's not the question. There are two related questions that the Democratic establishment is asking themselves. One, is there a candidate who is acceptable to us, who is also a neo-lib, who will not take on entrenched interests, who will not fight for working people? Is there a Democrat like that who is going to be more popular, who will do better than Joe Biden? Because Joe Biden has succeeded against all evidence to persuade a decent percentage of Americans that he's kind of on their side. He's the Joe from Scranton, right? So despite the 50, 60 years of carrying water for elites, the 50 years, whatever, of stabbing working people in the back, he still has a little tiny little scintilla of populist cred. So that's gold, right? That's gold if you're a corporatist Democrat. We've got a guy who will do everything we want. He's going to approve every pipeline. He's going to go for all the wars. You know, and I know I'm exaggerating a little bit. I mean, I give Biden credit. He got us out of Afghanistan. That was a really good thing, right? So that's one really good thing he did. But basically, if you're a corporatist, you get everything you want from Joe Biden. You don't get Medicare for all. You get more for-profit health care. You get more for-profit wars. You get more for-profit fossil fuel-based energies, production, extraction. So you get all of that in a package that somehow does seem somewhat appealing to some working people. That's gold, man. You can't do better than that. Is there someone else who'll be more appealing to more voters than Joe Biden and will still do what we want? That's the question they're asking themselves. And then they've got a second question they've got to throw into that mix. What about Kamala? What do we do with her? Isn't she the heir apparent? How do we promote somebody like a Gavin Newsom, who, let's face it, Gavin does have some appealing qualities if you're a Democratic elite. He's super rich. He's good looking. He presents well, I suppose. I mean, he never did anything for me, but maybe for some people. But how could we possibly, you know, because if you're a Democratic elite, everything's about the identity politics, right? You're gay, you got to vote for Biden because the Republicans are bound and determined to take away your rights. It's all identity politics all the time. If you're a Democrat, you're a black woman. So what are we going to do? We've got this black woman vice president. How can we pass over her? You know, without bringing down the wrath of some activist, neo-lib, black women and other women who want to see someone who looks like them in office, not someone who actually will fight for policies that will help poor, struggling, and working class African-American women and African-American men and African-American children and all working class people. No, we don't care about that. We just talk about the appearance. And it don't look great if you pass over Kamala. Right? She's a Democratic establishment corporatist from California. How do you pass over her for a white male Democratic establishment corporatist from California? That's a tough one, assuming Gavin's your alternative. So given that probably the alternative is Harris, or if not Harris, it's that poses a difficult conundrum for the Democrats. Given all of that, I understand why Biden has been put in the position where he feels he needs to run. And he may not want to. I get he doesn't want to. By the way, quick shout out to, let's see if we can get this on the screen. I didn't put this in my slide deck, so it's a little hard for me because now I've got to scramble, which I'm always told you shouldn't do, right? Don't scramble. Just do your thing. You do you, Hal. Get stuff ready. You're not a graphic designer. You're not a producer. Although I have done production, but that's not really what you're about. But let me see. I think I got this. Let's see if I can give you the bigger picture here. Now, of course, now it's not working the way I was hoping. But, and I don't want to just talk. I love the visuals. See if we can get this visual up. It's not easy. I guess I should have used a different tool. Let's see if we try it this way. I know I'm sort of teasing this, but I do want to get this, I want to get this picture up for you. Quick shout out, which by the way, I did promote this outcome earlier with Arlen. We discussed this exact issue. And I will tell you right now, just about there. Yay, I know there's a faster way to do it. So congratulations, Taylor Swift. I think well-deserved Time Person of the Year. I can't, you know, I had said, we were talking about who else, like in my family, and I said, well, maybe Putin, right? He's been in the news a lot. Russia's a big force. I remember, didn't they give it to Angela Merkel some time ago? When she was the Prime Minister of Germany, or Chancellor of Germany, whatever term I think it's Chancellor. So Taylor Swift is obviously an international, global phenomenon. Her Eras tour sells out everywhere. She writes her own songs. I don't think she writes the music. Now, I had this conversation with my wife. She said she thinks Taylor Swift does write her own. Maybe she writes some of the music now. I think she's more known for the lyrics. She speaks to her generation, kind of in the way that Dylan did, right? I mean, she seems to have touched a nerve with billions, or if not billions, hundreds of millions of girls, teens, young women, and now middle-aged women. There's nothing about her message that I find offensive. So, congratulations, Taylor Swift. Well-deserved honor. I can't believe there's anyone better, more deserving, more worthy of being the Time Person of the Year. So, congratulations, Taylor Swift. Okay, back to the politics. Joe Biden on being, on his decision to run. And he told a group of fundraisers he was running because of Trump. And he was asked about that. So let's get what his reaction was. Here's the video. Let's see. Just taking a moment here. There we go. Let me just stop it there. I'm glad you can see the closed captioning at the bottom. The question was, it's a little hard to hear because they've got the jet engines in the background. But the question being asked, would you be running if Trump, here it is, Trump is running, I have to run. So let me just get that going again a little bit more, and you'll see where she asked the question.
I expect so, but look, he is running, and I have to run.
Would you drop out if Trump runs out?
No, not now.
All right, so he is running, I have to run. So he's confirming exactly what Bloomberg News reported, that he told donors that he's running because of Trump. He's, Biden's now pushing well into the 80s. And if it weren't for Trump, he might not run. And he's asked directly, and he says, yeah, he's running. And I have to, right? I have to. And then asked a follow-up, which I thought was a good one. Well, so what if he dropped out? Would you? And he says, not now. To me, that not now is very telling, because what he's saying is, again, yeah, this wasn't something I was dying to do, but now I'm in it. I'm going to stay. But if Trump hadn't been running, or if he had pulled out, say, 3 months ago, then maybe I wouldn't be running. Maybe not now. Isn't that interesting? I think it really is. And, you know, for those who, like Bloomberg, fairly point out, it's kind of odd that someone who's way down in the polls is claiming that they need to run to defeat Trump. How does that work? This is somebody, meaning Biden, who isn't popular, who isn't a clear-cut shoe-in for re-election, the way Barack Obama looked to be, right? I mean, yeah, there might have been a few anxious moments against Romney, but in general, I think most of us saw Obama as the likely winner in 2012. But no one's saying that about Joe Biden. So it's a little strange that if you're that concerned, right, about somebody like a Trump, that you would feel you had to run. Unless the heir or heiress apparent is somebody who is less popular than you, who is, and I know there's been some back and forth, but unless the heiress apparent is somebody who really, really, really doesn't excite anybody. So this is the reason, this is the precise reason that Joe Biden is running for re-election. Because the alternative that is acceptable in terms of policy to the corporate elites who run the party is somebody who, at least a few months ago, was the worst rated vice president in American history.
At the expense of the planet. Meanwhile, that same NBC News polling revealed 68% of voters are concerned that President Biden does not possess the necessary mental and physical health to serve as president, with 55% saying they have major concerns.
Yeah, so Kamala Harris, eloquent as always in that speech. Look, at this point, I don't understand what's going on. Is it that she has a speechwriter who hates her? Is it that she genuinely thinks those kinds of circular rifts? We're all here to be here together. And it's important while we're together to acknowledge the togetherness of us being as an ensemble in this room. And when we're in this room, we're of the room, in the room together. Who is telling her that that is a meaningful way to communicate with people?
It seems like she does it right when it's not just off the cuff. She's reading prepared remarks.
So this is what I'm saying. Like,
can you
either someone
imagine her going through the scripts they've written for her and going, "This is brilliant. Oh, more of this."
Oh, my favorite tautology.
All right, so I just cut that off because enough, right? I mean, look, we all know it. Brianna Joy Gray hates Kamala, but yet she actually kind of bent over backwards. I think she sort of bends over backwards in a way to paint her in not such a bad light, because she's blaming her script writers, her handlers. I mean, come on. She's the one who can't say a sentence that's comprehensible. She's the one whose policies were so harmful to poor, struggling, working people in the state of California. So, I mean, come on, stop trying to blame her staffers, who, by the way, as I understand it, can't stand her, right? A lot have been quitting. I mean, look, I know they're trying to come up with something nice to not so harsh. And Brianna, really, I mean, if you watch The Hill, she just can't. She just laughs at Harris. But that response, right? That kind of like bemusement, that sense that this is somebody who's just so over her head. That's not what Democratic elites want from their candidate. And I think the recognition is that if we ran Harris, we'd have less chance of beating Trump. And for a lot of reasons, they don't want Trump, right? I mean, Trump's a wild card. You can't control Trump. He puts tariffs up there that hurts their profits from slave labor in the Far East. Every now and then he kind of gets a bug in his butt that we shouldn't be at war. That can cause, stops shipping arms to Ukraine. That holds up the cash flow. So, I mean, Trump does some things. If he builds that border wall and really keeps immigrants out, that's a cheap source of labor for us that will dry up, and also that we can use to threaten workers, American-born workers, that if you raise your voices or you start asking for those benefits we promised you, well, we're going to fire your ass and we'll hire these, these folks who aren't even here in this country legally. But if Trump builds that wall, they can't do that so much because there won't be as many people coming in the country illegally. So there's some fears among the billionaire elites, some of them, that Trump could kind of upset their apple cart. And that means they got to defeat him. And they are concerned that Harris, and I think with reason, isn't necessarily the best the best choice to defeat him, right? All right. I spent a lot of time on this program. By the way, we only got a few more minutes left, so I hope you'll join me. I'm thinking someone did call. I see someone called. Why didn't I hear the call? Who called me? Yes, you did call. Yeah, someone called. I didn't hear the ring. So I apologize, caller. Call back if you can. I wonder whether should have run, but anyway, if you get a chance, 240-242-5646. I'll try to get you on. Maybe looks like there was a call. Strange, because it should have rang. I'm going to see if I'll make it ring myself and see if I can hear it. If I hear it now, that means it probably did ring before. Oh yeah, my mic is working. So let me do that. Yeah, I heard the ring, so I guess no one did call. All right. Again, 242 in the 240 area code, 5646 if you want to join me. The people in the Democratic Party who are lined up against Trump, who are trying to scare the bejeebers out of you that you have to vote for anyone but Trump, any blue will do, are bad faith actors. These are not good people. These are not people you should trust. But that doesn't mean they're completely wrong. Trump is a bad guy. Trump is somebody we should be scared of. And to make that point, and I don't like to use MSNBC. This is a Fox video that was played on MSNBC, and now I'm playing it for you on Halitics. I did that because it's getting close to airtime, and I just didn't have the time to go through and find the Fox clip. So here's MSNBC.
Donald Trump reacting to reports about what a second term would look like and concerns that he would govern as an authoritarian. Donald Trump is no longer merely suggesting he'll be a dictator should he win a second term. Now he's just coming right out and he's saying it. Watch.
I want to go back to this one issue, though, because the media has been focused on this and attacking you. Yeah. Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
All right, let me stop it. So Hannity, I mean, that's just extraordinary, isn't it? Hannity's bending over backwards to give Trump a fastball right down the middle that he can hit out of the park. You would never use your power to seek vengeance or retribution against your enemies. I mean, what could be easier than for Trump to say, Sean, of course not. I'm in this for the American people. And yes, I was treated terribly. You know, he could go on and play his little violin about how we all have to feel so sorry for him. And then just say, but that's not me. I'm not in it for that. I'm not in it to get back at these people. I mean, and you know, of course, I think a lot of us would think he was lying. But it would be such an easy answer, and it was so obviously called for, and it was exactly what Sean Hannity was begging him to say. And what does he say? Oh, well, yeah, no, on day one, I'd go after him. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Except
Look, he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border, and I want to drill. That's not
retribution.
I'm going to be, you know, he keeps, we love this guy. He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one.
All right, so I'll stop it there. So, I mean, look, you can interpret that and say he's not calling for, you know, show trials against, I guess, Jamie Raskin for leading the House impeachment efforts after Biden was out of office. I mean, which was, by the way, the world's most politically tone-deaf, inastute move possible, except if you're Jamie Raskin and you're like, hey, I just want to get in good with Pelosi. I just want to get in good with Hakeem Jeffries. I want to get good with the donor class. And there's nothing they prefer to just partisan infighting as opposed to actually doing the business of the American public. If I wasn't impeaching Trump and going on CNN every other night and explaining how evil Trump is, then I might have to actually sort of maybe call for Medicare for all, right? Or reducing the military budget or raising taxes on the wealthy. And that's not something that the donor class would like. And that's not something that CNN would like. And that's not something that Nancy Pelosi, whose husband is, profited mightily from insider trading, or Hakeem Jeffries, the Congress member from AIPAC and Wall Street, they wouldn't like it if I started talking about Medicare for all and about how we shouldn't have locked up Stephen Donziger because he won $1 billion class settlement against, or class lawsuit against Chevron Texaco. They wouldn't like it if I did that, but they like it just fine if it's Democrats against Republicans, if it's partisan fighting. So, Trump didn't say, I'm going to go after Jamie Raskin. I'm going to go after Adam Schiff, like the guy, weapons manufacturer's favorite Democrat, because he was going on, the View and talking about how evil I am and how I conspire with the Russians, even though there was no evidence to support those lies. He didn't say, I'm going to go after those people. But he did say, we're going to drill and we're going to build a wall. And those are two terrible things. And I'm going to be a dictator on day one. So it's pretty obvious this guy, he ain't what we want either. There's nothing good to be said about Trump either. So we're in a bad spot. What I've been urging was previously vote for Dr. West, and he kind of feet of clay, right? Not great. So now I'm with Jill Stein, because we can't vote for the Democrats. We can't vote for the Republicans. Let me play this. I got two more clips. I know it's getting towards the end, but I want to play something from Matt Taibbi, who I think has done some good work covering the Twitter files, covering the suppression of speech by the Democrats. He's done a pretty good job covering that, but he gets a lot wrong too. So let's see if we can. Here's Taibbi. I don't want to play too much of this, but I do want to play a little of it. And then we'll have my rejoinder to Taibbi why, in the end, I think he's wrong, very, very clearly wrong, when he claims maybe the Democrats, according to Taibbi, are even worse than the Republicans. That, he implies better we elect Republicans than Democrats. Here's Taibbi.
To be here, and we had strategized, what are we trying to accomplish with this? And one of the things that we've been trying to do is reach out to people who were erstwhile Democratic voters and try to convince them that this issue should matter to them and why it should.
Okay, so again, that issue is the Twitter files. That issue is Democratic electeds calling whoever their contacts were at Facebook, at Twitter, I guess wherever their social media, and asking them not to publish certain memes, asking them to suppress others. That this was something, according to Taibbi, that Democrats did, and that this is very, very important, and this is why it matters. And I agree, it matters. Maybe I don't think it matters quite as much as Taibbi thinks it matters, but I think it matters.
It mattered to them. And so I spent a lot of time trying to formulate arguments about why this is really a class thing. Not only is it going to affect issues like, Palestinian activism or healthcare for all or whatever, take your pick. There were lots of other things that we found in both the Twitter files and the CTI files that were aimed at the left as well. But
and let me stop it there, because I think that's really important what he just said. He's saying, hey, we found a lot of what the Democrats were doing, which was suppression of progressive speech, lefty speech. It's not like they were just going after Republicans or conservatives or pro-Trumpers. They were actually also actively targeting leftist people like Julian Assange. So I think that's true. It's really important. I mean, what Taibbi is pointing out is a legitimate criticism of the corruption that is completely rife in the Democratic Party from top to bottom, from stem to stern, root and branch. It's all there. He's right. He's right. But he goes further even to kind of imply that Republicans aren't even as bad.
In the last year or so,
and maybe they're not, at least on this issue.
It's abundantly clear to me that the Democratic Party is just fundamentally intertwined with this project, that this is their project. The Republicans they're really outsiders in this thing, in ways that they weren't during the War on Terror years. If Dick Cheney was the leading proponent of programs like extraordinary rendition, torture, enhanced interrogation, all that stuff, the mainstream Republican Party basically needs to, get an invitation to even sit at the table at the discussions for things like the Global Engagement Center,
All right. So he's saying, again, Taibbi, that since, the W administration, where Cheney was out there pushing the, and had the stovepipe right to Judith Miller, so the New York Times was publishing whatever Dick Cheney's office wanted it to publish with respect to alleged weapons of mass destruction, purchasing yellow cake uranium in Niger, that kind of thing, which was clearly just pure propaganda. I think it is false. I can't prove he's wrong. What I can say is he's taken a lot of money from Elon Musk, and this is Elon Musk's preferred position. And, most people want their bosses to be happy. That doesn't mean that he's wrong. It doesn't mean he's lying, but it means he's not real credible in my opinion, on this issue. That said, yes, the Democrats suck. They really, really do. But I'm not persuaded by what Matt Taibbi says, that somehow the Republicans are a lot less bad on this issue, or certainly on any other. And to kind of make that point, and in a way, look, this is what makes, I think, it's tough, because unlike just about every other host out there, I'm not a binary. I'm not like, oh, well, Democrats bad, therefore Republicans can't be that bad. They must be sort of good. I'm not like that. No, they're both that bad. They're both that awful. And it is that important that we come up with an alternative to the duopoly. And to kind of make that point, I'm going to invoke Kate Cox. I knew a Karen Cox. Kate Cox. She is a woman in Texas who had to go to court to get the right to make a healthcare decision about her own body. This is a direct result of Republican court packing, putting anti-women, anti-reproductive rights judges and justices on the courts. They're awful, okay? They're awful.
It's a hard time. Even with, being hopeful with the decision that came from the hearing this morning, there's still, we're going through the loss of a child. There's no outcome here that I take home my healthy baby girl, you know. So it's hard, you know, just you know, grief. But I think that you know, joy and grief can coexist, and there's, you know, there's moments of joy. I'm really grateful for my wonderful 2 children that I have and my wonderful family, and you know, it's a moment of sadness, but we really have a wonderful life here in our home state, and so, you know, I just try to count my blessings.
All right, so that's Kate Cox, incredibly gracious woman. She learned that her third pregnancy was of a child who had a incredibly serious congenital disease and would only live for maybe a couple of days after birth. She went to the courts in Texas. She asked for the right to terminate the pregnancy with her doctor, and it was denied repeatedly until they were past the 20-week deadline in Texas. She had to go to court. I mean, she probably could have gone, you know, to another state and done this, but yeah, she felt it was important to stand for justice, for reproductive justice. So she's been put through an incredible ordeal. And it's all because of Republican nominated, appointed, confirmed justices and judges on our courts. That doesn't mean you should vote for Democrats. What that means is you should not vote for Republicans, certainly not for president, not anyone like a Donald Trump, who put people, you know, put Amy Coney Barrett. All 3, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, all 3 Trump justices voted, maybe Kavanaugh didn't, I think he did, to repeal Roe v. Wade. So the answer is none of the above. Don't vote for endless war. Don't vote for the corporate elites. Don't vote against reproductive justice. My only suggestion, vote for Jill Stein.